Have you guys been to your MySpace page lately? Woo! It's still there. It's still there, floating around the internet. But it's different. I went to my MySpace page, and it is now a Halloween store. There's an old cardboard cutout of me with Vin Diesel. But years ago, I met a girl on MySpace. It was like 10 years ago. And she was really pretty, and she's like, this is a real story. She was like, I think you're the best. Let's go out sometime. And I looked at all her pictures, and I was like, this isn't a real person. So I ignored it for a long time. Also, she had a boyfriend that appeared to be a professional boxer. He's like in a lot of situations on a stage with people watching, fighting for a living. And I was like, well, let's not talk to her. And then one day, he was no longer in her photos. He'd been deleted. And I was like, how you been there? And then she goes, come on down to where I live, like kind of like an hour away. But I drove down there, and we had a great day. She was like this beautiful girl, and she did seem to like me, and we got a tattoo together. Middle of the day, soberly, she got it too, on my ankle and her ankle, of a less than 3, which is a heart, now when you text it, it comes up at as a heart. But at the time, it was like, well, it's a less than 3. Is this an ass with a birthday hat? Like, I didn't know what it was. And we didn't, I don't know. It was a good time. But then I came home the next day. This monster kid that was still her boyfriend drove all the way up, came to my house, knocked on the door. My roommate opened it and said, who are you here to see? He said, is Chris here? And she said, right this way. This is his bedroom. And then they went and took a nap on a fucking couch. And this monster, I'll never forget him walking in. I looked at one of his arm veins, and it was pulsating. And I was like, you're upset. Do you know what's her name? And he was like, yeah. I came here to kick your ass. And I didn't even have shoes on. And I had to talk him down. But it was a weird masculinity. I was like, this is really dangerous for you to come into someone's house. This is a ridiculous choice you're making. You have your fighting career, you might be throwing it all away coming to kill me. And I don't feel like a wuss at all. He was like, you might be right. And I'm like, you're darn right, I'm right. And he started to back down. It was the most graceful thing I'd ever done. And it got to the point where he's like, we'll just know if you keep seeing her, she's very manipulative. And I'm like, oh, buddy. I put my hand on his shoulder. He didn't do anything. I'm like, I got you right where I want you. And he started crying and stuff. And then he'd snap out of it and be like, oh, big time comedy guy, and your room's all messy. I'm like, fuck, if I'd known you were coming to beat my ass, I would have spruced up the place. And then finally, after what I think it was close to an hour, he finally left. Because he looked at her phone, and it had the picture of the ankle tattoos and my address. And that's what got me in that mess. And then he went on to do other things. He quit fighting, and he became like a kind of famous motocross guy. And so I was working on a show, and he came in like 2 years later. I'm like, hey, I remember you. And he's like, oh, man, I'm so sorry. I was like out of my mind. She drove me nuts. And I'm like, I get it, man. Because I broke up with her. It was like, I saw her a few more times, but I finally broke up. I knew she had seen other people. And then I called her friend. I'm like, is she seeing other people? And she's like, yeah, 2 of them. So I have a less than 3 on my ankle, an exact reminder of how many dudes she could not fuck at the same time. But I started to see this guy all over the place. I'm like, hey, we kind of became friends. And then he crashed on his motorcycle, and he died. He's a dead guy now. And I guess my point is, don't fuck with me.